Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex, my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. And if you're following the channel and the New York Giants closely, you know that Ryan Poles and Joe Schoen have both gotten second interviews and are finalists for the general manager vacancy for the Giants. Now, this is an intriguing situation. It's unfolding as we speak. There could be a few more other candidates, Adam Peters, Joe Ortiz, to get second interviews. Now, the question is, who are they going to go with? Who is leading the pack? The consensus is that Joe Schoen has an advantage here, right? He's been the first one to meet with them. He was the first one for a second interview. The second interview occurred this morning on Tuesday, January 18th, and then immediately after they recognized Ryan Poles as another finalist as well. So it will be interesting to see if Adam Peters and Joe Ortiz get another opportunity to interview, maybe in person. Coming off a phenomenal wild card weekend where the Bills absolutely kicked the crap out of the Patriots. Then you have the Chiefs who dominated the Steelers and the 49ers who knocked down Jerry World, with a really nice game. And I know they had a couple struggles on offense in the end. There are some defensive issues, but with Jimmy G and his injured ass and his interception throwing ass, it's pretty impressive that they managed to get this far. But I have to say, a lot of great candidates. I wrote an article on Joe Ortiz today, and ultimately I was looking at him and I said to myself, this guy's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. And I got to say, when you're looking at him, and he's not in the playoffs this year, but that Baltimore team sustained a wild amount of injuries. J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson. They went down to Josh Johnson. If you remember, he played for the Giants a couple of years back as a practice squatter. He was their third-string quarterback, and they almost won a game with him. So you're talking about a team that's so deep. They were still at it, managed to have some success despite all the injuries and inconsistencies. And he's been working with that organization for over 20 years with Ozzie Newsome and some really great names, some of the best talent evaluators in football. So he's another great candidate as well, Anthony. But we're going forward, looking at these second interviews, these finalists are coming up. I think we're getting close to a hire, maybe this weekend, maybe in the next couple days, maybe early next week. But it's going to be probably within the next 7 days. We'll know who the next general manager for the Giants is. How exciting is that? And do you think Joe Shade is kind of leading the pack right now?
Yeah, I think this is thrilling. This is what we've all been waiting for, and it's finally coming to a conclusion. The Giants have conducted a general manager search that we're all really pleased with. We're all really excited by the 9 candidates that the Giants interviewed via Zoom, and now it's confirmed at least 2 of them are being brought in for in-person interviews. Joe Schoen, Ryan Poles, as Alex mentioned, they're getting second interviews. Now, will any of these other candidates get second interviews? I'm not sure. Maybe it really is just down to 2 for the Giants, but I do know that Joe Schoen has some competition. The Bears, very interested in Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen is apparently reportedly interested in the Giants, and the Giants are feeling mutual about that. And if I had to make a prediction, yes, Alex, I do think Joe Schoen is the guy to get the job. I think he's leading the way for the Giants, and I think that the Giants are leading the way for Joe Schoen. So if I had to make a prediction, I'm going to say probably by the end of the weekend, maybe as early as Friday, the Giants are probably going to hire their general manager by then. And I do believe it will be Joe Schoen. Now, the only reason that it wouldn't be Joe Schoen is if something goes wrong in one of these interviews and Ryan Poles ends up basically taking over Giants ownership and really captivating them, which I also wouldn't be upset about. I think Ryan Poles is a super qualified and exciting candidate in his own right. And I that's another thing, though. I'm very curious to see if any of these other guys that we've done all of this research on for weeks, are they looked at as very strong candidates to the Giants as well? Will they call in any other candidates for secondary interviews? I'm not exactly sure. But with the 2 guys that it seems to be down to right now for the Giants, Joe Schoen and Ryan Poles, very, very, proud of the Giants for finally going outside of the box, outside of the organization with these candidates, and really intrigued to see which one ultimately does get the job. And I think that the Giants, you got to give them credit where it's due. John Mara, he has done a pretty solid job so far this offseason, with the general manager candidate search. And I guess once that hiring is made, we'll turn our attention towards the head coaches, and it'll just continue to be more excitement from there. So Joe Schoen, I think, is leading the way, but don't sleep on Ryan Poles.
Not at all. Ryan Poles last year was actually a finalist with the Carolina Panthers. So keep that in mind. He is definitely well respected around the NFL, and there's a reason he is getting this job. And Anthony, you brought up a really good point about the potential Rooney Rule exception here. Just talk to me about that for a second.
Yeah, so the Rooney Rule, everybody knows the Rooney Rule. This is one of the NFL's initiatives towards diversity and inclusion. And, there aren't many black head coaches or general managers around the NFL right now. And that's something that the NFL wants to change. Now, the Giants are bringing in 2 finalists for second round of interviews for the general manager job, right? One of them, Joe Schoen, white dude. Ryan Poles, not a white dude. So Could that be because they're trying to satisfy the Rooney Rule? That absolutely he will satisfy the Rooney Rule, but I do also hope that the Giants aren't doing that just to satisfy the Rooney Rule. I hope that they view Ryan Poles as a very strong candidate, as the Carolina Panthers viewed him as a strong candidate last offseason, and many other teams around the league also view Ryan Poles as a strong candidate. That's what he is. But yes, interviewing Ryan Poles does satisfy the Rooney Rule for the New York Giants.
Yeah, look, as a current white dude, I do not like the whole, lack of diversity in the NFL. I think that, they should be promoting that. And Ryan Poles is a phenomenal candidate. He's a great candidate, straight up. We've talked
Absolutely.
about him. We've talked about him, and he is an offensive line mastermind. That is what he prides himself in. He's really great at identifying offensive line talent. Now, if you're a Giants fan, if you're somebody who cares about this team, offensive line might be the most important thing that we can actually solve at this point in time. Upcoming draft, there's a lot of great prospects, but there's a big difference, right? So the first four offensive linemen, the talent disparity between the top four and the rest of the class is massive. Now the Giants have an opportunity to go out and get one of the top tackles, whether it's Charles Cross, Ikem Ekwonu, Evan Neal. There's a couple of phenomenal players. Of course, you have Tyler Linderbaum, who's actually graded higher than all of them, according to CBS. But he's a center, so centers don't normally go that high. I'd say Ryan Poles, if you want a guy to come in here who's going to identify those gems in the mid rounds, identify those really good players who can, start and need a little bit of experience, but some refinement and some fundamental, refinement. He's the guy to find them. Talk about Trey Smith. He's a starting offensive lineman for them. Allegretti, I believe his name is, one of the another mid-round, late-round pick for the Chiefs. He's been tremendous as well. So it's actually quite impressive to see how the Chiefs have turned this around so quickly, and the success they've had. But if the Giants are really looking for a guy like Ryan Poles who's going to overhaul that offensive line and put some great talent in place, they should be considering him as a legitimate candidate. If they're just using him for a Rooney Rule exception, I'm going to be pretty pissed off personally, because I think that's a load of
Me
bullshit.
too.
I think that's a load of shit. So I think that he should be a legitimate candidate, and I think he is a legitimate candidate, and he's plenty knowledgeable. Considering he was a finalist last year for the Carolina Panthers job, I think he's more than incapable of leading this team, especially another year of experience under his belt. And the Giants desperately needing to overhaul a position that he is a tremendous asset in building
Yeah,
roster
and
construction.
I'll add in there that extra year of experience that you just mentioned from last offseason when he interviewed for the Carolina Panthers. That extra year,
Huge.
that was the year that the Kansas City Chiefs rebuilt their offensive line from the ground up, and many people are saying Ryan Poles got a lot of credit for that. So in that extra year of experience, that's always important, as much experience as possible for GM candidates, but that particular year is really important for Ryan Poles because you look at the New York Giants, as Alex mentioned, we all know the number one thing that they need to fix is the offensive line. And that was the case for the Kansas City Chiefs. After this past Super Bowl, when they lost to the Buccaneers, they really did lose because their offensive line could not keep up with the pass rush of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they went into that offseason and said, okay, overnight, we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this in the 2021 offseason, go into 2021 to 22 with a strong offensive line in front of Patrick Mahomes. They rebuilt it overnight. They got that strong offensive line in front of him. And of course, 42-21, they just whacked the Steelers in Super Wild Card weekend. And the Chiefs once again look like one of the main contenders for the Super Bowl this year. And a lot of that has to do with the rebuilt offensive line that Ryan Poles has helped put in front of Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely. Now, those are the two finalists as of now. There could be more. Could be Adam Peters. Could be Joe Ortiz. But ultimately, right now, I'm thinking. And Anthony made a really good point earlier today. He said to me, I don't really have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. And I kind of agree with him. This is the first time I felt like genuine optimism for this team in months. Absolute months. We have an opportunity to go out and really get somebody from outside of the culture. John Mara said last offseason, we've been doing things for a really long time the same way, and we realized that, we're kind of behind the rest of the NFL. If you bring a young guy in like Ryan Poles or Joe Schoen, whoever it might be, they're bringing modernized analytics and cultural behaviors to our organization. Now, the only thing I hope is that John Mara and Tim McDonald, McDonald, and Chris Mara as well, they're open to adapting to the new style of NFL organizational management, because right now I feel like they're stuck in their old ways. They don't want to change. They've been fighting it for years. The hiring of Dave Gettleman was them freaking terrified of modernizing their team. Analytics wasn't a thing until 2 years ago, and they just didn't know. They were so far behind. They were trying to catch up and build a database that just didn't exist. within the team. So now you're talking about the Giants coming in here, having data sets, having data points. These general managers, they're probably talking to ownership, and ownership's like, holy shit, we are so behind, because they're like, we have a freaking office full of guys in cubicles hammering out analytical data sets and points to show us why this is the best decision, why this player is good, why this guy fits that role, why this blah 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 blah. And they're probably sitting there like, we have one dude and he's over there doing 2 + 2 = 4 yards. So now we have, modernized analytics approaches, and they're probably kind of seeing from the strategies that they're unraveling in front of them. They're kind of seeing the next level, the future of the NFL and football. And I hope to God they see that and say, that's where we got to go and that's where we need to be. And I hopefully they bring over that culture and we can adapt and have a great future because of it, Anthony. But that's pretty much the latest update regarding the Giants and the latest candidate search and second interviews and finalists. So there's bound to be more. I believe Adam Peters will probably get a second interview as well. Hopefully, I believe he deserves it because he's definitely one of the guys up there and one of the top executives and talent evaluators in the NFL. But guys, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think Joe Schoen is leading the way right now? Ryan Poles, I'm curious to hear what you think about this general manager search and who you think it's going to be. But as always, make sure to like and subscribe below on the Fireside Giants YouTube channel, and we will catch you guys on the next video.